Imagine you are playing chess against the devil himself. What strategy would he use? He wouldn't attack you directly at first. Instead, he would tempt you, luring you into making moves that look irresistible, moves that even the engine says are best. But the devil has his own plan. The quiet, equal position suddenly explodes into total chaos and tactical insanity. You can't calculate anymore. You lose your mind and soon the game. In today's battle, this devilish strategy was executed brilliantly by one of the strongest players of his time, Paul Keres. Let's dive in and see if you can play like the devil too. Keres' opponent, Dunkelblum, starts with d4. Keres replies with knight f6, and after knight f3, as Keres had lost in the previous rounds and desperately needed a victory, he tries to complicate the game and makes a sharp move c5, immediately attacking white's central pawn. And the only way for white to fight for the opening advantage would have been d5, of course, crossing the center of the board, getting the space advantage and transposing into a Benoni-like position. But it seems that in our game white didn't want to fight for the opening advantage, and he was probably ready to make a draw, so instead he plays e3, a quieter move, defending the pawn and opening the bishop's diagonal. Keres in his turn plays g6. He's going to fianchetto the bishop in order to increase the pressure on the central pawn and on white's queen side. White develops the king's bishop, Keres fianchettos his king's bishop, both sides castle, and after white plays c4, in order to keep creating complications and increasing the tension to the maximum degree, Keres plays d5. Now all these four pawns attack each other. White captures on d5, and the best move for black before recapturing on d5 would have been c takes d, because his c-pawn is also under attack. White is ready to capture it. So, according to the engine, the best move is c takes d, and it's also the most natural move, and after white recaptures, black gets the pawn back, and the position would have remained more or less equal, but black would have very few chances to create complications. For this reason, instead of the objectively strongest c takes d and only then knight takes d5, Keres captures on d5 right away, letting his opponent win a pawn. And that's exactly what white does. He captures on c5, now he's up a pawn, and the engine agrees with Dunkelblum. Engine also thinks that capturing on c5 is white's best move. But Keres has his point. After the white pawn has disappeared from d4, the bishop's diagonal, the dark squared bishop's diagonal, is open and its activity has increased. It's eyeing the b2 pawn. Also, it controls the c3 square together with the knight, and that means, as you see, white hasn't developed his queen side yet, and the most natural way of doing that would be knight c3, but that means white cannot do it, because the bishop together with the knight control this square, so black would simply get his pawn back and destroy white's queen side in this case. But Keres writes that he realized at this point that his opponent was going to play e4 next move, kicking out the knight, after which it would stop controlling the c3 square, after which white will develop his knight. Also, after the black knight moves away, it can lead to the exchange of the queens, and white can simply transition into an equal endgame. Maybe even white would have a slight advantage, and black would have no chances to complicate the game. So Keres must do something right away if he wants to have some chances to win this game. So he makes another decision which the engine doesn't like so much. And indeed, it doesn't make sense at first sight. He plays knight a6. Of course, the knight is eyeing the c5 pawn. Black is ready to get the pawn back, and his knight on c5 would be greatly placed, but what if white simply exchanges his bishop? And that's exactly what white does. And again, the engine agrees with Dunkelblum. Bishop takes a6 is the best move, because while the black pawn is on b7, it controls the c6 square. Now black is forced to capture with the pawn. That means white's extra pawn turns into a passed pawn. Besides that, black gets useless doubled pawns on the a file. But again, Keres has his point. He gets the advantage of two bishops. White has exchanged his e2 bishop, his light squared bishop. That means the light squares in White's position aren't very well defended anymore. And besides that, Black also gets the half-open B file for his rook. And the main thing Black gets, as Keres writes, is the possibility to complicate the game. So now he will get, Keres will get a chance to create some fighting possibilities and combinations. So what should White do? According to the engine, White still has a slight advantage. But White hasn't developed his queenside yet, and he still cannot do it with knight c3 in the most natural way, because again Black would exchange, then he would exchange the queens, he would get the pawn back with a tempo attacking the rook. After the rook moves, he would develop his second bishop with a tempo, again attacking the rook, and it turns out that after White, let's say, makes the most natural move rook b7, Black plays rook d8, and White is losing. White has back rank issues. Black is simply threatening checkmate, and the bishop is also placed on the first rank, so White either gets checkmated or he loses material. But instead of knight c3, of course, White should have played e4 first, and only then knight c3. However, Black still would have a great compensation for the pawn. He would have played knight b4, the knight is actively placed, and after knight c3, Black plays a5, preparing bishop a6 with a tempo, after which both his bishops would be greatly placed. The knight might invade the heart of White's position, the d3 square, also targeting White's extra pawn, the c5 pawn, so Black would definitely have a very good compensation, and the engine evaluates this position as equal. So it was White's best option, e4 followed by knight c3, but instead White decides to retain this valuable pawn, so he violates the opening principles, and instead of developing his queenside, moves the already developed king's knight. Knight d4. The idea is to play knight b3, and the knight will defend the pawn and the pawn will survive. However, this lets Keres increase his initiative. So he plays queen c7, eyeing the pawn. White, of course, plays knight b3, defending the pawn, and rook d8, of course, with a tempo, creating an unpleasant x-ray, so developing the rook with a tempo, and threatening knight with a tempo because knight takes e3, with the discovered attack on the white queen is threatened. So White must defend against this threat. He plays queen e2. As we can see, Black has great activity. While White has developed only one piece, Black has a great knight, great bishop, great rook, and the queen is quite actively placed. But Black must play energetically, otherwise he would lose his initiative. And that's exactly what Keres does. a5. The useless doubled pawn proves to be not so useless. Black threatens a4, kicking out the knight, which is the only defender of c5, after which Black would get his pawn back. Besides that, Keres has vacated the a6 square for the bishop. Of course, right away Black isn't threatening to play bishop a6, but later he might do it, and that would come with great effect because White has the queen and the rook on this diagonal. So, how should White defend against the immediate threat of a4 followed by queen takes c5? The first thing that comes to mind is to play a4 yourself, but in this case, so the a2 pawn used to defend the knight, so now the b file is weakened and Black can develop his last piece with a tempo, also putting more pressure on Black's position. Now the rook, the second rook, is very active, so Black would increase his activity. For this reason, White doesn't play a4, instead he plays bishop d2. Indeed, why not? White finally develops one of the pieces of the queen side, and with a tempo he threatens not just to win a pawn, the second pawn, by capturing with the bishop. Also, after bishop takes a5, Black would lose material. His queen and his rook are both placed on this diagonal. So what should Black do? You can pause the video and try to find how Keres develops his initiative and creates total chaos on the board. So, of course, the bishop is blocking the queen. The queen isn't defending the b2 pawn, but black still cannot capture this pawn. Bishop takes b2 would be a mistake. It doesn't work because white simply captures with a tempo, attacking the queen, opening the queen's way. The bishop is also under attack. Black, of course, can play queen e5, saving the queen, defending the bishop, but after bishop takes d8 again, black gets the rook back, but his bishop is badly placed in the corner. The black queen is tied to the defense of this bishop. White can capture this bishop and deprive black of the advantage of two bishops at any moment. White can also move the knight with a tempo, attacking the bishop for the second time. And unlike black, white can easily evacuate his bishop by playing bishop a5, and he is also ready to push the pawn forward, so white is better, much better. For this reason, bishop takes b2 doesn't work. What else can black do? Keres writes that nowadays, in the days he annotated this game, he would have played the obvious, so the a5 is under attack, so knight b4, closing the bishop's diagonal, saving the a5 pawn. The knight also controls the a6 square, that means black is threatening bishop a6 with great effect, and black would definitely have a very good compensation for a pawn. Because black, it's not good for white to capture on b4, that would be in black's favor, because black would have undoubled his pawns. Next move he would play a5, renewing the threat of a4, followed by queen takes c5, and also after a5, black renews the threat of bishop a6 with great effect. So here black is even much better. But when Keres was young, he didn't think about this kind of positional ways of developing the initiative. So he goes for tactical insanity. White is threatening bishop takes a5, but he takes no measures against it and plays a4, attacking the knight and letting white execute his threat, bishop a5. But I just told you that he didn't take measures, but that wasn't entirely right, because he calculated everything. So he did take measures, but in a tactical way. So at first sight, white is winning. The queen is under attack. If the queen moves to d7, which is the only way of also keeping an eye on the d8 rook, white simply captures. And let's say after queen takes d8, white will move his knight, and black doesn't have the sufficient compensation for the exchange. But Keres has in mind a different idea. He plays instead of queen d7, he plays queen c6, letting white capture the whole rook. But from c6, and this is the point, the queen controls the a6 square, and black is ready to play bishop a6 with a tempo. So white has no choice. He must accept the rook sacrifice. If instead of capturing the rook he makes another move that comes to mind, so his knight is under attack, so if he plays knight d4, saving his knight with a tempo, attacking the queen, then black simply exchanges, and after e takes d, black has a strong move, knight f4, attacking the queen, threatening checkmate. The only move for white would be queen f3, parrying both threats, but black simply exchanges the queens, destroying white's kingside, getting the pawn back, saving his rook, and black is much better. Next move he will develop his bishop. The bishop has great squares, h3, b7, a6 are all great squares, after which the rook will be brought into play, rook c8, attacking the pawn. Black is much better, even winning. So knight d4 doesn't work, that's why white makes the only move, he accepts the rook sacrifice, bishop takes d8. So white is up a rook, but now the insanity begins. The knight is under attack, but instead of capturing the knight, Keres plays bishop a6. Now, besides the knight, the queen, the rook, and also, as the black bishop has moved away from c8, the d8 bishop are all under attack. So what should white do? Of course, he must think about his queen. If he plays, let's say, queen d2, just moving the queen away. Then black gets the rook back, and after king takes f1, rook takes d8, the material balance has been re-established. White is only up a pawn, but his knight is still under attack. He must move the knight, let's say, to d4, after which black captures the pawn, getting the pawn back. Now, materially the position is absolutely equal, but positionally, just compare the pieces. The black pieces are as active as possible. There is an unpleasant X-ray, while the white queenside is still not developed, so black is much better in this case. For this reason, instead of moving the queen, white makes the strongest move, the only move, knight a5, moving the knight away from the attack and with a tempo, counter-attacking the black queen in his turn. And it turns out that exchanging the queens would be in white's favor. If black captures the white queen, white captures the black queen in his turn, and after possible bishop takes f1, it might seem that black is winning because b2 is also under attack, and not just b2. If b2 falls, the rook would also fall, but white makes a simple move, knight c3, saving his rook, and it turns out that the black knight is also under attack. And let's say after black exchanges the knights, after king takes f1, the black knight is under attack, so black must save it, and white can play rook d1, moving the rook away from the bishop's diagonal, and black can get the pawn back, but white again wins a pawn with a tempo, attacking the knight, and after possible knight e6, black is ready to capture on a3, but white defends it, and white remains with an extra pawn, a better pawn structure, and more active pieces. So that means black cannot exchange the queens by capturing on e2. That means he must move his attacked queen, but the queen must also keep an eye on the a6 bishop, otherwise white would capture it. It might seem that the most natural move is queen f6. The queen from f6 still defends the bishop, and also black creates a battery, threatening to capture on b2, but it doesn't work, it loses on the spot, so the white queen is still under attack, but white plays queen d2, saving his queen, attacking the knight, and it turns out that black cannot capture on b2 because white wins the knight with a tempo, attacking the rook. But Keres calculated everything. Instead of queen f6, he prepared queen e6. The queen still defends the bishop. She also defends the knight. Unlike the previous variation I have just shown you, the white queen won't be able to capture this d5 knight. And, which is very important, by playing queen e6, Keres has created an X-ray. And we will see why it's so important. So, what should white do now? His queen is still under attack, let alone the bishop. But of course he must save his queen. The only way for white to continue the resistance would have been knight c4, closing the bishop's diagonal. And in this case, if black, who is at the moment down a rook, if he captures on d8, he wouldn't have the sufficient compensation for the exchange. But Keres prepared, instead of obvious rook takes d8, knight f4, attacking the queen. And now we can see why this X-ray is so important. The pawn is pinned, white cannot capture the knight with the pawn. And as the black knight has moved away from d5, black attacks the pinned knight for the second time. The queen is under attack, the bishop is still under attack. So what should white do? The engine says that the position is still equal, but of course for humans it's incalculable complications we have at the moment. So let's say white makes the obvious move, queen. He must of course save his queen. Let's say he plays queen f3, saving the queen, unpinning the pawn. The knight is under attack, and also eyeing the rook. And I will just show you the most beautiful variation among many variations suggested by the engine. I have chosen the one which is the most beautiful, and which is also suggested by Keres in his annotations. So the rook is under attack, and the engine actually suggests rook takes d8, but Keres prepared fantastic bishop takes c4, letting white capture the rook, threatening bishop takes e7, discovered, check, followed by, after bishop f8, queen takes f8, checkmate. So white not just won a rook, he also threatens checkmate. But Keres prepared bishop d5, attacking the queen, so white doesn't have time for bishop takes e7, and the bishop is also attacking white's king side, and after queen b8, white still threatens bishop takes e7 with checkmate in 2 moves after that, but Keres prepared knight e2 check, the only move, king h1, then bishop takes g2 check, then queen g4 check, the king cannot move to h1 because of checkmate in 1, so the only move is queen g3, white must give up his queen, but white is still up material, he has a great material compensation for the queen, but it's not over yet. Black can win the exchange, and after possible knight d2, bishop takes, rook takes, white is still up material, for the queen he has a rook and 2 minor pieces, and here Keres stops his analysis, saying that this position is too complicated to evaluate, but let's continue with the engine. Engine recommends queen d7 with the double attack. The only way to save both pieces is bishop a5, defending the knight, but it's not over yet. Queen c6 check. Now if the king moves, then black captures this valuable passed pawn with a tempo, attacking the bishop. It turns out that the only square is d8, but after that black again attacks both minor pieces. Again, the only move is bishop a5, but queen e5, this time attacking the rook and the bishop. Black is winning material, and he is winning the game. And if instead, after queen c6 check, instead of moving the king, you might wonder, what if knight f3? Then this pin will prove to be deadly. Instead of capturing the pawn, which is also possible, black has even stronger move. g5, threatening g4, winning the knight, and there is nothing white can do about it. If he plays g4 himself, then black plays h5, renewing the threat. If white captures, the pawn would move to g4, again the knight would fall. And the only way to stop this is king g3, unpinning the knight, but in this case h4 check, forcing the white king to return to g2, the knight is pinned again, and black plays f5, threatening f takes g, and there is nothing white can do. If he captures on f5, the g-pawn again will move forward, the knight falls anyways. But of course all this is very complicated, and after queen e6, the engine, I've just shown you one possible variation. The engine says that after knight c4 the position is absolutely equal, but a human cannot calculate all this, so instead of knight c4, white makes the obvious move. His queen is under attack, so he simply moves her. He plays queen d2. And of course, Keres captures the rook. At the moment, materially, the position is equal. White is only up a pawn. But what next? The bishop is still under attack. This bishop is also under attack. We still have terrible complications. The best thing white could do was to capture on f1. Black in his turn, in this case, captures the white bishop, again re-establishing the material balance. And white's queen side is still not, white is up a pawn of course, but his queen side is still not developed. Black pieces are as active as possible, and black is threatening knight takes e3 check, for example, with the discovered attack on the white queen, and after the queen captures on e3, black exchanges the queens, after which the b2 pawn won't be defended by the queen anymore and it falls, and the rook falls too. But white still could have tried to continue the resistance in this variation after king takes f1. But it's understandable that white didn't want to play this passive position, so instead of king takes f1, he decides to finally develop his queen side, but it's too late. He plays knight c3. And we have reached another critical position. Actually, white hasn't just developed the queen side, he also has created a threat. The d5 knight is attacked for the second time and white is threatening to capture it. So, what should black do? how should he continue his attack? First, let's look at the obvious moves. If black finally captures this bishop, then white captures the black bishop in his turn, not with the king, with the rook. And it turns out that white is still up a pawn, but unlike in the previous position I just shown you, white has also solved his main problem. His queen side is developed now. So black, of course, cannot capture right away because the knight is pinned. So white has retained an extra pawn, developed the queen side, and he is better. So for this reason, obvious, rook takes d8 doesn't work. What else can black do? If he captures on c3, then white simply recaptures. Now the bishop is under attack, so white can save it, let's say, black can save it, let's say, by playing bishop b5, and the position would become equal. So black is losing his initiative in this case. So these natural moves don't work, and instead of them, Keres plays bishop takes g2, destroying white's king side and also defending the knight, which was under attack. So what should white do? It turns out that now, if he captures on d5, black simply recaptures with the bishop, saving his bishop. Materially, the position is equal, but look at the white king. He is in trouble. The catastrophe on the light squares is coming and there is no defense. The king becomes a target of a terrible attack. For this reason, after bishop takes g2, white, of course, captures the bishop. But now, only now, finally, Keres captures on d8, and unlike the previous variation, now the white king is exposed and black threatens knight f4, check, discovered, attack on the queen. White is losing the queen, so white must take measures against it. So he plays king h1, and we have reached another critical position. So the last one. How should black continue his attack? Who will deliver the final blow? So remember the useless doubled a6 pawn, which first moved to a5, then to a4, and now finally it moves to a3. So this pawn turns out to be the main hero of our game. Who would have expected that? The idea behind a3 is to attack the b2 pawn, which is the defender, the main defender of the knight. So black wants to undermine this knight. He threatens to capture on b2 and then capture the knight, which would be attacked twice. So white must do something about it. But what can he do? If he captures on d5, then black recaptures with a tempo. After the queen moves, black captures on b2, again with a tempo, getting a terrible passed pawn, which needs only one move to promote. For this reason, after a3, white plays rook d1, moving the rook away from the bishop's diagonal and also putting more pressure on d5, but black captures on b2. Now he's ready to capture the c3 knight, but white, now we can see the idea behind rook d1. Now white captures on d5 and the knight is protected, but it turns out that our main hero needs just one move to promote, and the rook is the only defender of this promotion square, so black can capture on d5. And if white recaptures, black sacrifices the queen, but then promotes and wins. And if instead of capturing on d5, white saves his queen by playing, let's say, queen c2, then rook takes d1 check, queen takes, queen e4 check, also taking the promotion square under control, followed by promotion, and again black is winning. For this reason, after rook takes d5, Dunkelblum resigned. And now I recommend watching how God would play chess. Instead of temptation and chaos, you will see how divine geometry and a brilliant logical attack come together. But first, I'd be grateful if you like this video, write comments, share and subscribe, as all this is really helpful for the channel growth.